Mr. Dines?
Just a minute, Mr. Chairman. We're doing a little upkeep here.
This conference will now be recorded.
I call to order this regular meeting of the King George County Service Authority Board of Directors. We'll start with the name invocation by Ms. Cleveland and the Pledge of Allegiance by Mr. Miller. Please stand as you're able.
Dear Lord, thank you for allowing us to join this evening. Please help us to make the best decisions for King George County and the clients of the Service Authority. As we are in the Holy Week, please help us to all remember the promise of forgiveness. I also pray that you will continue to watch over T.C. Collins as he heals from his recent accident. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Are there any amendments to the agenda, Mr. Miller?
No, sir.
Moving on to public comment. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak? Seeing one, comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person in order to afford everyone the opportunity to speak. If comments relate to a specific public hearing item, we ask that you offer those comments at the time of the public hearing.
Hello, my name is Ryan Portner. I'm a 37-year resident of this county. Up until last Friday, I was a 7-year employee of the King George County Service Authority. I've worked underneath 4 different managements there, none of which ever pushed us past a skeleton crew. We worked, or at least I worked, along with a few of my coworkers through COVID. We weren't given, any special clearances because we were considered essential employees, things of that nature. And a lot of us lost our jobs last week due to what I feel like, after talking with a few of you, was a lot of misinformation or disinformation. And that kind of disturbs me a bit. It also kind of disturbed me a bit, the fact that I've been out on workman's comp having an ACL repaired that I hurt here doing maintenance work for this county. And the notice that I had lost my job came a week and a half after I'd gotten out of surgery, which was just so nice to have. Trying to heal. Hey, you got to find another job. And after reaching out to some board members, and explaining to them that, okay, yes, I understand the water department had been dissolved and that I was technically a water employee. I had been maintenance for 5 years, and I had always done more maintenance work than I had done water. And Mr. Miller here himself had told me that I was only water until my wells were checked for the day. And then I was maintenance from then on out, which would make me a water employee 12 hours out of the week and a maintenance employee 28 hours out of the week. So my only thing here is, okay, I'm a maintenance employee, but yet I was let go. The only maintenance employee let go. So the only thing I can understand is maybe that's because of my injury. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but one can think. But after talking with some board members, I started to notice a little bit of a trend coming up, which was a lot of sorries and we feel bad this happened to you. And we were completely unaware. We didn't know. We were told we weren't allowed to talk to employees to get this information. And that's the one that hit me key. Because the employees were also told we weren't allowed to talk to you, which means that there was a bottleneck of information that was created by one person. And that one person then, by creating that bottleneck of information, was then allowed to control a narrative that he then fed you guys this whole past year and a half since he sat here as your interim general manager, which I think has really kind of swayed whatever decisions you guys have made. And that is really disturbing because I am also a customer here, and it really bugs me. So now I stand here in front of you as Cassandra in front of Priya, telling you, you were foolish enough to bring this horse into the city, burn it, for you already know you cannot trust the Greeks. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate you coming up and making comments. Is there anyone else?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Service Authority. My name is Hobie Mitchell. I'm a 60-year-plus resident of Virginia, and I'm also a managing partner in Green Energy Ventures, which is a rezoning applicant for King George Technology Center, which we hope to bring data centers and other uses. I just want to let you know that we are, as a company, still very interested in working with the county to help provide water solutions for not only just for King George, but also for ourselves, and help have a lot of experience on that. And I want to reemphasize our participation and our wish to help the county help construct and develop water treatment facility in conjunction with what we're doing. I thank you for your time and look forward to working with you and helping solve that in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anybody else that would like to speak this evening? Is there anyone else online, Mr. Dines?
No, Mr. Chairman.
I just want to thank everybody for coming up and making presentations and letting us know how they feel. We'll move on to report of the members of the board. Ms. Binder.
Yes, thank you very much. Mr. Mitchell, thank you very much for coming up again with telling us about your proposal. We'll see it when the application comes through. Ryan, I can sit up here and say many things, but I can't say I understand. I can't say, sorry is a cheap word at this point. And I wish it was different because you are a very dedicated former employee of the Service Authority. So all I can say, I'm not even going to say I'm sorry because that is a hollow word at this point. And I wish it was different. And I think we need to look into it a little bit more of why this gentleman, there's not a job found for him, because he's a lifelong resident. His family is here, and we should have offered him something. Thank you.
Ms. Cleveland.
I too want to say thank you to Mr. Mitchell for coming out and talking with us again about the interest that you have in King George County. And Mr. Porter, thank you for coming for your public comment. And I too hope that there could be something in the county that could support what you could offer to maintenance or something else in the county that we have, because it is very unfortunate to see so many people lose their job, especially in the environment that we are in right now. I also wanted to just comment, and perhaps Ms. Lackey can help us all to understand what the rules of engagement are when employees speak with board members, or how we're able to engage with them to get information if we can. Maybe you can provide some information around that so that we understand how to handle that in the future. Thank you.
Ms. Kupka?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening. Mr. Mitchell, thank you for your comment, updating us on your project. Mr. Portner, thank you very much for your courage in joining us this evening. I am one of the board members who spoke with you several times about your situation. I am not afraid to speak to and listen to our employees. I appreciate your candor. I do not understand why you were not offered a position in the maintenance division, despite the fact that it does appear to me that you have done a great deal of work, maintenance work, and in fact, it's my understanding that your injury was caused during maintenance work. So I still do not understand that. So perhaps we could get an explanation as far as that goes. I'm going to leave it at that for right now.
Mr. Morris?
Thank you. Thank you both for coming out this evening. On the 31st of March, I attended a meeting with various county staff, agency and department heads, and VDOT, and the county residents who are opposing the Pyramid Health facility over on Owens. They had a lot of different questions. The biggest thing that came to the service authority was they were concerned about the water requirement and the sewage requirements of this facility. According to Bryce Young, our county engineer, he looked at a 3-year history of water use of those wells that service that area, and computing in the 20% residual required by VDH. He concludes that we have the capacity to meet the needs of Pyramid, whether they build a quote unquote hospital or a nursing home. It's my understanding that there's some clarification that needs to be done on terms as to what is going in there and how it pertains to zoning, and how it will affect the plans review and the reviews by things like fire and rescue. That's it, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. I'll just cover a few things. One, we started holding restructuring committee meetings. We will update on that tonight. And there have been discussions between myself, Mr. Metzler, and Mr. Miller about the employees that have gotten let go and what we can do to help them land and whatnot. I'll let them cover, so I don't speak out of turn on what those plans are. But there are plans in the works for those various employees just to make sure they're employed. So I'll let them cover that maybe later in this meeting. But that covers what I've been done. We'll move on to the consent agenda.
I move to accept the consent agenda as written.
Second.
We have a motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. Report from the county attorney, Ms. Lackey.
I don't have anything to report this evening. Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question for the county attorney?
Yeah.
Ms. Lackey, just to confirm from my knowledge, there are federal regulations and state regulations pertaining to whistleblower type things, right? That employees are protected if they come forward with a concern, reference, operation, that sort of thing, correct?
There are certain protections for reporting illegal activity. It doesn't necessarily cover everything that the average person would think is a whistleblower activity. There are also, of course, certain First Amendment privileges that employees don't lose by virtue of being employees. So based on Ms. Cleveland's request, I'd be happy to get you some more information about, speaking and fact-finding with employees.
Thank you.
Ms. Pinder has a question as well.
Yes, Ms. Lackey, and this is going off Ms. Cleveland's because this is a question I've come up with my whole 6 years on this board is the clarification you asked for, I would definitely like, because one of the things I've always had struggled with, if an employee has gone through the chain of command and they've got no resolving, where do they go? They should be able to come to the board of directors because that would be the final rung of the ladder. So I would definitely like to have that information.
Can I have as a follow-up to that, especially now with Emboden taking over, so the dynamics are changed a little bit because those employees are now employees of Emboden. So we probably also need clarification over how to handle that.
Are there any other questions for Ms. Lackey? Seeing none, there's no presentations, reports tonight, no action items. So we'll move on to discussion items. First up is the discussion of the direction of the restructuring committee. That's just going to be an update. Ms. Binder and I sat with Mr. Miller, Mr. Messler, and Ms. Hahn to go over kind of what restructuring might look like and to get a framework that's being explored. At this time, what we're looking to do is potentially move what I would call customer service under customer service / purchasing under Ms. Hahn in the finance department, and then merge our current maintenance with general properties. Those are the kind of the items they're looking at, and there's a potential to add a new position. We're calling it Bryce 2, to kind of oversee the day-to-day stuff, to be the face to Emboden, work with them on maintenance and getting stuff moved forward on the plants and whatnot, but also helping to oversee some of the capital projects and whatnot that we have coming down the pipeline. So that person would be in that position to kind of oversee the day-to-day stuff, and how it exactly might report up to Mr. Miller, to the Board of Supervisors at that point, and the Board of Directors here. But those items are being worked out more in depth. It's just it's a framework right now, because there are different things that would have to be covered by how maintenance is charged back to the, when they're doing maintenance for the service authority and whatnot. So there's different things that have to be looked into, but that's the general thought process at this time. So for those not on the committee, and Ms. Binder can jump in if she remembers something she wants to add.
One of the things is we were mulling around names, so it would be to eliminate the general manager and do something like a superintendent of water and wastewater that would be responsible for checking over the contracts, the capital, purchasing of supplies, all those things that Emboden wouldn't be doing. The other thing is I brought up was the board of directors and maybe a possible restructuring of the board of directors, meeting only once a month to get a report from Emboden of, the nutrient levels and what's going on in the plants. And then also, if we're going to be a true customer board of directors, that the 2 supervisors move off and it be 5 citizens that are on the water or sewer, or water and sewer, but they have to be customers of the authority.
Yeah, so thank you for adding that. Those are some good points that we've discussed. And right now, Mr. Miller and Mr. Messler and the team are looking into those options and what the viability is and how that might look overall, so that they can report back to us. But we wanted to give an update on that, and we do have another restructuring committee meeting Thursday, I believe it is. So we're going to keep moving forward with that to try to get that locked down, and how that framework will look, so we can get the budgets and whatnot done. Are there any questions by any of the other board members?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Thank you. So my question is, and I understand if there's not as much content, meeting only once a month, but I worry about warrants being approved. The board of directors needs to approve the warrants so the bills get paid, and we certainly don't want to fall behind. And just once a month, I don't know that that's often enough for finance to be able to do their job and keep everything turning. I just offer that as a suggestion. Thank you.
Yeah, and they're looking at that's one of the things. It may not be possible. It's a thought, but it's part of what Ms. Hahn's looking into, if that's reasonable, or if it may not be at all reasonable to do that. So it may be that the 2 times a month stays, but it may, and the night may move or something where it's not aligned with the board of supervisors and whatnot. But those are things that are being vetted right now to see if they're possible, and they may not be.
Do we want any, we were also looking for more feedback, so Ms. Cleveland and Mr. Morris too.
Yeah, if there's any feedback on the concept, I think we've kind of run over it with both of you, the concept of moving the service under customer service under Ms. Hahn and finance, and then the maintenance being merged with general properties.
Mr. Chair, here's a couple thoughts that I have. So I like the idea of moving it underneath the other umbrellas, because from a cost savings perspective, also from an oversight accountability perspective, I think that it's much better that way to have these employees be involved with other staff members that are doing like things. So I like this, and I'm hoping that it's also going to be a cost savings for our clients, considering that they're having to get a lot of incur a lot of costs. I was trying to think of the word. They're incurring a lot of costs. So the cost savings is going to be really important as you guys are doing this restructuring, as where can we cut costs as best possible. A couple things that I wanted to make comments on as well, as far as the board of directors. I am absolutely 100% for not having board members on the Service Authority Board that are not paying customers. They should be clients that are paying for the Service Authority and not have any sort of political influence over their particular district if they're not on it. So I think that would absolutely help that piece of it. In order to be transparent to customers, I think that as we look forward with our meetings, I'd like to see the warrants broken down, or the payments that we're paying broken down in respect to the budget and where they hit the budget items. Furthermore, would like to understand and know all and any out of scope cost that Emboden is charging out of scope of their existing contract at what we're paying for. Those are just my initial thoughts, but I'm sure that I'm going to come back with a lot more. Thank you.
Do you have any comments, Mr. Morris?
No, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, we're trying to, once we get this stuff fleshed out more and more, we want to make sure we keep the board and the public aware of what we're doing. We're trying to be transparent about it. Right now, we've got a framework, and we're trying to see if the framework will work and what can and can't be done. As I said, as I've indicated, the team here at the county is working on it, trying to see what can be done and what can be vetted, and how that final structure will look.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to make sure that I clarify something real quick, because I know that it said transparency, but I think you guys are being absolutely transparent about the structure. But the one thing that I am asking just for future, when you guys are thinking about the meetings and how they will be structured, it would be nice to be more transparent as far as the cost that we are having outside of scope of contracts, the cost that we're having outside of budget, and just be very transparent and clear, because it has not ever been very transparent and clear. To my understanding, the Board of Supervisors have to go to public, hearing comment if the budget goes out of scope like 3% or something like that. I know that that isn't probably feasible for this particular board because of all the different variables, but I do think there needs to be some sort of control around that, because right now you could just go out of scope completely and not have to have any public say.
Yeah, I think we can request that, like when Ms. Hahn does a finance update, that if there's anything that's outside of the budget, like unexpected, I don't know, the impellers blew up or something like that, that was unexpected, it wasn't planned in the budget, that she could cover that. I know we try to keep most things in the budget somewhere. Usually it means something else gets squashed. Usually, one project gets squashed to take over for something else.
Mr. Chair, so if the board understands that anything above $50,000 has got to come to the board, so the idea that something is going out of budget is not something that happens unless there's a reason, and then we would come to you and give you that option to approve it or disapprove it. So it has to be, if it rises to that threshold, then it comes to the board on any decision. If there's significant changes to it now, I think within Bowden's contract with us, again, that 50,000 threshold will come into play, but at the same time, if it's a structural change to the contract, Ms. Lackey would obviously, we would have a process of asking your approval to change that part of the contract. So, and they are going to also, and I'll talk about that here in a moment, about in terms of their reporting that you're going to be getting on a monthly basis. They will be able to, keep that information flow going as well.
Can I ask a question about that? So when I was looking at the financials when we were in the work session, I think we were slated for like 50,000 for the Emboden contract. We weren't slated for any of it, actually. It wasn't even in the budget. So the Emboden contract was never even in the budget. But whatever it fall under, we were slated for, I want to say like 50,000, and it turned out to be 300. So that's what I mean by transparency. I think that the public should know that that particular budget was not sufficient for that.
You're talking about the Emboden contract that we have right now?
The one that we had before, it was, I think, around 50,000, and it ended up being 300.
She's
So
talking about the
without-
emergent, all of a sudden,
The
the emergencies,
So
it went.
Obviously, that's got to be something that would come and be reconciled at the end of this fiscal year.
So my point, though, is I think that when that happens, we need to be very clear to the public when that happens.
Yes, I'm happy to present that information. I don't think there's anybody trying to keep anything from the board or anything like that. I think that Ms. Hahn is a fabulous finance director, and Ms. Norris Barker has done a great job for the Service Authority in terms of handling that part of it. And so if there's ever a situation that we are going to exceed or we're going to have major cost overruns, we will be presenting that information to you. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I hope that you're not taking it as these employees not doing a good job. I just don't think that we're doing a good job letting the public know about that.
Yes, ma'am.
Are there any other questions, comments? All right, moving on to the Emboden transition report. Mr. Miller?
So it's going to be, Derek and I are going to give a little, he didn't realize that, but we'll give a little update on things. So April 1st, obviously, was the beginning of their contract. So that was Saturday. My understanding is the transition is going very well. We have worked out our internal aspects of this in terms of how Imboden's going to work with our folks. And I do believe you have at your desk a current organization chart, and that is current until the restructuring committee comes back and makes recommendations, and those recommendations are acted upon. So it's not something that's, it'll last as long as there are no changes. And so at this point, the way things will work is that Ms. Norris Barker will work with Imboden on any kind of ordering of supplies, and she will channel those through finance. Mr. Eisenbeis will be extremely valuable in the sense of dealing with the maintenance needs that they will come to him with. And he has a great relationship with the folks at Imboden. And so we expect that to obviously continue on a greater scale. And then he will work through me or, finance in terms of anything that might require purchasing or, additional financial work. So I also wanted to point out, I think it's very important to note on that existing organization chart, you see the three departments that are backing up this organization significantly. I will say this, county engineering, and Mr. Young is here, I would suspect he's a little over 50% of his time is towards the service authority in terms of all these projects that are going on. Department of Finance and Department of Human Resources, maybe a third, maybe a little bit more than a third of their time is spent in support of the service authority. So definitely the county is a part of this organization, and I know that we look forward to a continued part of this organization. But this is how it looks right now. Obviously, the service authority is with the restructuring committee is considering new direction, and once that direction is put in place, then this will perhaps change. And I know that we have some things that are in flux right now in terms of especially the maintenance side, in terms of how John is going to staff up his organization. So there's still some opportunities out there. I don't want that to be taken away. There is some of those opportunities out there for folks if they're interested. I know there were of the number of employees that we had prior to April 1st, Imboden took, I believe, 5. You want to just provide that? Mr. Metzler will provide an update on this. And then we're going to tell you what Mr. Metzler is continuing to do in terms of working with these folks that are still looking for jobs.
Yep. Just kind of go over the breakdown of kind of where the employees have transitioned to. 5 have been transitioned over to Imboden. We have 1 employee that did apply for an open county job and was selected for that role. So 1 employee did move into a open position with the county. We had 3 wastewater employees that did decline and are looking for things on their own. Out of the all these employees that are not with the county or with Imboden right now, they have heard from me, and I've offered my services to say I can help you with the resume building. I've contacted every neighboring county and talked to the HR of my peer in HR about, hey, what's going on here? We might have some qualified individuals looking for roles. They've let me know what openings they have. I've made connections. 2 employees have taken me up on the offers. They've sent me resumes. We've dispersed the resumes to the neighboring counties. Also, I've got in touch with Caroline Correctional Facility because they have water wastewater treatment facilities in the correction facility here. And also, I've got a contact with Prince William Service Authority, and they've actually reached out to 2 of our employees about opportunities with them also. So my role with helping individuals, if they want the help, is to say, hey, this is my connections where I can link you up Positions that are posted and available at the county will be posted online. We do ask that, have asked anybody to express interest in that, in those roles. So that's kind of how we've been helping some of that offboarding of employees.
Are there questions?
Hi, thank you so much for sharing that information, and I'm happy to see how much effort that we're putting in helping these displaced staff members. I did have a question about people who have applied to positions with the county, because you said you had one application, one hire. Was there any applicants that did not get hired?
We only had one individual express interest and apply.
Okay.
For the county position.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Are there any other?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm looking at our job board online right now, sir. And right now there is an open position for a utilities maintenance technician.
Correct.
Thank you very much.
Are there any other questions? That's it? All right.
That's it on that. I certainly can do the,
So moving on from the Imboden transition, we'll throw you right into the general manager's report.
I will, let me just, I guess, let me finish that up. So Imboden has indicated that what they would prefer to do, because of the time of reporting to DEQ, VDH is always due by the 10th of every month. They would prefer to come to you and provide your full level report of water and wastewater operations on the second meeting of every month. So they're planning to be here on the 18th. And I think you're going to find what they're going to tell you is, very comprehensive. It's very, very impressive at this point. I guess I'll transition right into the general manager's report. So last Thursday on the 30th, I met with the DEQ folks, including compliance and enforcement and permitting people, along with the Imboden team. And we talked about the Imboden's operations. I guess I'll go out of what I would consider character, and I'll paraphrase somebody, but one of the DEQ enforcement regulators indicated after the meeting that he had great confidence in what King George is attempting to do. And obviously they have concerns and they want to see, significant turnarounds for us on the wastewater side, but they were very impressed with what Imboden is doing. And I think we're going to obviously see some much needed improvements to what's going on. Superseding consent order, which is dealing with our pump stations. And that is one that was entered into in, I believe it was August of 2021. And we have a kind of like a 6 month, every 6 months we have to update them. We are going to provide them with the April update, and that deals with the Fastmart Burger King pump station. And our crews will be doing the majority of that work. We finally were able to get the Dominion folks in there and to do their thing, but John Eisenbeis is going to head that up, and we are going to notify DEQ before the 10th that where we stand on that one. But it also involves some of the other pump stations. We have a number of pump stations that have been operated by and maintained by the utility, but were probably originally private, and now we own them and we have that responsibility. So we're working through those. Some of these are delivering service to maybe as little as 3 customers. Some of them are things like Rick's, which my understanding may be out of business or has closed permanently. So we're going to talk with DEQ about that. There's some other areas as well, but we have a general plan that will provide that regular update to the folks at DEQ. The next item is the budget schedule. So I believe Ms. Hahn was indicating that she was hoping to get maybe towards the end of April with you. I will tell you that Mr. Collins's accident has kind of pushed the Board of Supervisors budget schedule off by a week. But they're going to resume this Thursday. I don't know if that has any impacts to what you all need to do. We obviously have some things built in that we have to notify the public if there's any rate increases. And so that and the adoption of the budget has to be done in a certain time frame. So we know that, but if you want, I think we had asked if you could give us some idea of the date that you might want to the day of the week that you might want to have your budget discussions. So the supervisors are Thursday. They might be other days, but that's up to the supervisors at this point. And if you don't have it ready yet, I understand. We'll keep pushing you.
I'm gonna need to look at the calendar for day of the week. I don't know right off the top of my head.
Mr. Chair, I would just say, given, at least for Ms. Bender and I, we're every other Tuesday committed to the Board of Supervisors and every Thursday pretty much committed to the Board of Supervisors. So we might consider Wednesdays if that works for everyone else. I don't know. I'm just putting it out there.
I'll take a look. I'll put out an email and let's see what we can what works for everybody.
And as you recall, we want to bring in Mr. Lau from Davenport to talk to you about updated CIP. What are some of our financial options in terms of possibly restructuring the debt if this is the time, or what, so definitely want to get him involved in this process as well.
Mr. Chair, I have a couple questions. And I can't even remember, but historically, how many sessions did we typically need for the budget?
I believe it was 4, perhaps.
I think it is about 4.
Then we kind of looped it into your regular meetings. Once the budget is ready, it can be part of your regular meeting process. It doesn't necessarily have to be a special work session or anything like that.
And the other question was budget advisory. When should we have our recommendations for budget advisory?
You could notify us at the next meeting and we can notify those citizens.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions, comments? Mr. Dines?
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Hahn would like to chime in.
All right.
Can you hear me?
We can.
So it's probably going to be more into early May before we can get started because as Mr. Miller mentioned, we're still in the thick of the Board of Supervisors budget. And I've got also in the month of April, I've got reporting for the ARPA funds for the Board of Supervisors. And until we do something with the restructuring committee and I know more of what is going to be needed, and I'll have to schedule meetings and sit down with, probably have to have Bowden involved as well as Mr. Eisenbeis from maintenance before we get to meetings with the board. But I'm thinking we could probably do it in less meetings than what we did last year. Possible. We could probably do both, present both expenditures and revenues in the same night instead of breaking them out into 2 different nights, and then give you all some time to take that home with you, look over it, and then come back for any further discussions.
That sounds reasonable. Anybody else have any?
Mr. Chairman, quick question. When do we have to have this approved by?
So the budget has to be approved before the end of June. And I believe I know that we're going to be doing some rate increases due to the Emboden contract. I believe we have to have a public hearing on any rate increases. And so that's another thing that we'll need to meet with Mr. Lau about and discuss exactly how much rate increase we're going to need.
I believe, Ms. Cleveland, that last year you had 2 meetings in June, and you might have even had a special meeting, but I know that both meetings were designated specifically for the budget approval and then the public hearing that came with it. I think that you may have even had the public hearing on the rates and then the budget, and then you had the budget approval. So that kind of gives you, and it was kind of like mid to maybe June 21st is something that rings in my mind. So you definitely met your requirement to get it in by the end of the fiscal year.
Are there any other questions? Is that it for the general manager's report? All right, moving on to the information session.
I move that the King George County Service Authority Board of Directors convene and close meeting pursuant to State Code Sections 2.2-3711 A3 and A6 to discuss 1, wastewater facility regulatory enforcement status and consent order negotiations, and 2, groundwater facility permitting status and recourse. Both discussions pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711 A7 and 8 for consultation with staff and legal counsel regarding actual or probable litigation where such consultation or briefing in open meeting would adversely affect the negotiating or litigating posture of the public body and specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice of counsel.
Second.
We have a motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Roll call vote. Ms. Bender?
Aye.
Ms. Cleveland?
Aye.
Ms. Kupka?
Aye.
Mr. Morris?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. We are in closed session.
I move that the King George County Service Authority Board of Directors return to public meeting and certify by vote that only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered during the closed meeting.
Second.
We have a motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Okay, we're going to have a roll call certification. Ms. Binder?
So certify.
Ms. Cleveland?
So certify.
Ms. Kupka?
So certify.
Mr. Morris?
James Morris, so certify.
And the chair so certifies. We are back in open session.
I move to adjourn to April 18th, 2023 at 5:30 PM in the boardroom.
Second.
I have a motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. We are now adjourned to April 18th, 2023 at 5:30 PM here in the boardroom.